Hello, welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart. In this video I want to take a quick look at the new Bolt Action Introductory Set that Warlord Games have very kindly sent me to look at. And because it's an introductory set, I thought I'd enlist the help of my son Jacob. Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Baron of Dice, premium wargaming dice. Over 500 styles, over 4,000 customer reviews. Welcome to the best dice on the planet. The new Bolt Action Introductory Set is set for release in late November 2024 and looks to be aimed at brand new players to World War II wargaming, or at very least to Bolt Action. Priced at £42.50 for full RRP, and with far fewer models than the usual starter sets, including paper mat and cardboard half track as well. It's very much aimed for that beginner, almost younger market, or at least that's what it looks like. Now, the reason I've enlisted my son Jacob's help here is because this reminds me of a GW or Games Workshop style introductory box. The artwork on the back is very reminiscent of sort of probably 2000s Games Workshop pictures, Lord of the Rings era, old Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and I find that really interesting. I think it's potentially a really good thing. It'd be interesting to see whether this appears in any Waterstones or W.H. Smiths and things like that. So I really wanted Jacob's first impression, but I'm going to give you some of my own as well. Artwork's great, very standard Bolt Action kind of stuff. I quite like this imagery on the back. As I said, it's a little bit sort of 2000s Games Workshop, a little bit Battle Games and Middle Earthish, but it's cool to see them moving in that kind of direction as well. And I quite like the collect, build, paint, play stuff. It says for 2 players, 14 plus. Many of us war games started much before we were 14, and many parents will be buying this, I'm sure, for children that are younger than 14 as well. Jacob is very, very nearly 10, and he's already playing some games with me now, all Games Workshop stuff at the moment, but this is something that definitely interests him a little bit as well. And last year on holiday, we went to a lot of the sites in Normandy, didn't we, Jacob? So you've got a little bit of an understanding around World War II. One thing that really stood out to me about this box, and it got me flicking it over, is contents. There's nothing on the back here that lists what's in the box. You can see a picture, and it's not until you flick it on its side and it's not in English. So you've got it in French, German, Italian and Spanish, and you've got that full contents list, which you get with loads of other games, and I'll probably pop a couple of images on the screen now, the kind of things I'm talking about. It's been something that's been around for years. You flick it over, and in bold writing, you've got a kind of a large contents, contains X amount of miniatures, rule book, and all those things. It's just not on here, which is a little bit odd, because again, if I was a parent not knowing about this game and I was picking this up in W.H. Smiths, I'd want to know what's in the box and be able to read it in English, rather than just guessing what's on the picture. Minor thing, I'm sure the contents are far more important, but it did surprise me a little bit. So enough talking, let's have a look inside. And we'll slide open the box, and what do you think? What's the first things we see?
Dice.
Dice, as always. So your normal 6-sided dice and the order dice that you need for the game as well. There's a dice bag, which Jacob might not know, but it's really important in Bolt Action. In order to choose who's going next, you blindly draw a dice from the bag. So you've got 3 for your Germans and 3 for your US here. So you know who gets to choose one of their units to activate. Then we have the old-fashioned seminal ruined farmhouse building. There's a recent tutorial on this. I've painted one. I'll pop a little link in the corner now if you want to go watch how to paint that. And then inside we have your miniatures. I will have a closer look at these frames in a moment, but you've got your US Rangers and you've got your Germans as well. In the bottom half of the box, we have a little flyer that tells you about the game a bit more, tells you about scenarios and things as well. That's quite interesting. Ready for the full rules, tells you about the full hardback rulebook. You've got a cardboard measuring tool there, a cardboard half track, and pin markers and other things as well. Very cool, very useful. And this is really interesting for Bolt Action. We've had play mats for Victory at Sea, that kind of thing before, where people don't have sea mats, but to actually have a double-sided gaming mat, yes, it's just poster material, and that's all you'd expect, but it's enough to get people started and playing the game. It's double-sided, so you've got a muddy track on that side, and on this side just plain green. It's not something we'd use an awful lot, because I've obviously got loads of gaming stuff here, but again, if you're buying this for a first-time wargamer, or your child or something like that, then this would be fantastic. And then you also have this field manual, which I haven't looked inside yet. It's the first time I've looked at it. I'm going to assume it's a slightly slimmed down version of the rules and everything to teach you how to play the game, or at least get you started. So Jacob, you can help me turn the pages here and hold them down the other side, and let's see what we've got. So it's the same sort of font and things that you see for the standard new Bolt Action version 3 rulebook. Some beautiful colour pictures and the kind of things that really get people excited about wargaming, which is the kind of thing I'd want to see. Looks like there's a sort of introduction to the hobby thing, very much the kind of things you'd find in old Warhammer Fantasy books and old Warhammer 40k books, which is again interesting based on the background of the people that own Warlord Games. It makes, you know, total sense that we'd see that kind of thing. And these beautiful big table setups there. It looks pretty cool. What are your first impressions, Jacob, looking at the book? Does it look interesting? Does it look boring?
Yeah, it looks interesting. I like the pictures, how it advertised the game like that.
It's quite colourful, I think.
Yes.
And you get lots of full colour rulebooks these days, but I wonder if that's a deliberate attempt to make sure that there's toy soldiers on every page, or nearly, so that, again, so younger people looking on may find this more exciting to look at than this. Interesting, now we go back to sort of hobby and there's building miniatures, and this is really, really nice stuff. This isn't things you find in the core rule books these days, and I really like this. And if you've never built a miniature before, there's not a lot of words and there's not a lot of stages. And then we've got a section that's playing games, and again, pictures of events and things that you need. But again, it just reminds me so much of being younger and picking up Warhammer Fantasy Battle as it was back then, and 40k, and feeling that excitement of the introduction to the hobby as a whole and what it might be. And you start aspiring to the tables that are in the pictures and really excite me. And it'd be interesting to see whether that can capture another generation in the same way. But you've got your basic concepts about your order dice and things like that, line of sight measurement, it's all trimmed right down. An idea of sprues and guides. Now this is probably where it's different from Games Workshop now, is that we're all push fit with Games Workshop. So this maybe would be the major sort of divergent point between someone picking up a 40k starter set and picking up something like this, and maybe why it does suit the slightly older child, but still very, very useful. And it's all the miniatures that you obviously get in the set as well. This is different now, a colour-coded guide to building, and that's not something you get in the standard kits. Maybe we'll see them as they release new plastic kits for version 3 next year, but that's pretty cool as well, and it will help us build the miniatures that are in the box. So we have obviously standard German Panzer Grenadiers and American US Rangers. Setup objectives for the map that we've got in the book. A second mission as well, using the farmhouse. More building guides, so you're building extra units as you go. This is really interesting, so you don't need all of your miniatures right away. Look, we've got just a handful of miniatures on each side with some of these. So again, that's really, really interesting. Get to the third mission, you're building more miniatures that you need to play the next one and then the next one. This is really good, not seen that kind of thing before. So obviously you could build them all and then just do the missions one by one. But if you want to get playing really quickly, you could go back to that first mission, having just built a handful of miniatures, and away you go. And the missions continue. We have mission 5, and with the introduction of the cardboard German half track, which I know a few people have chuckled about in the groups online, but you know, that takes me back to these days. This is Warhammer Fantasy Battle 4th edition, Jacob. And at that point, you got a cardboard stone thrower and a cardboard high elf on Griffin as well. So there's precedent for these things before. It means you can try different types of machinery in the game rather than just infantry. So I think it's cool. I think it's a good bit of fun. And I didn't know what to expect from this, and I'm really enjoying this. As we go mission 6 now, more miniatures being built and introduced. So you could really spend a couple of weeks slowly building your miniatures, learning different stages and aspects of the game, and then playing it as you go. And then we're on to painting and things. So I think that's really cool. One thing I would have probably liked to have seen, but maybe that'll be for a second time they do this,
is coloured frames. I know they've done coloured frames for Warlord Games Epic Battles, the blue for the French, the red for the British and so on, and sometimes that causes issues. But wouldn't it be great if one of those frames was green, not grey? The US Rangers were green, because you could try those first games without having to paint your miniatures. Of course you can do that anyway, and we're going to do that, Jacob. We're going to try them without painting them. But again, just a minor thing. It would have been a really nice touch to have one of the sides in a different colour. But I love these basic paint guides, really, really good. And this book just feels like a really good introduction to wargaming in general, but then also to how to learn to play Bolt Action stage by stage. And that's impressed me and surprised me. That's not quite how I expected it to be. And this introductory book really is just that. And then we've got the stuff at the end to really excite you about what other things do you want to buy to expand upon the armies you've already got, other nations and theatres and things as well. Lots and lots of full colour pictures, not that much text, which I find really interesting. I think there's a lot of thought gone into this. And I'm more impressed than I thought I would be. I always thought it was a great idea from the moment I saw it advertised. And I had hopes for it that it would be good to get people into the hobby, but looking through this book now has genuinely surprised me that there's been a lot of thought gone into delivering a package here that not only introduces people slowly, having to build those few miniatures stage by stage. It's really good. I'm very impressed so far. And of course we missed the bottom of the box, which turns over and becomes a bunker piece of terrain as well. Again, not very exciting or elegant, but if you've just got this, it means you've got something on the table to use as scenery as well.
So the plan is to build a few of the miniatures and at least try out the first couple of missions in the game. Now they aren't brand new frames, they're existing frames from the Bolt Action range. The US Rangers are an excellent set of miniatures. They date back to 2018. Very, very good sculpts though. Holding up very, very well. The faces are really, really good on this. I'm a big fan of this frame already. I've got some waiting for a future project. I think they're really, really good. Should go together fairly easily. Even if you're brand new to miniatures, you will be able to work it out. Not as easy as push fit, as I mentioned earlier, but if this is what you got to offer, they're absolutely fantastic. The German Grenadiers are a little bit older, 2015, but still a very, very good frame. Faces maybe not quite as good as the US Rangers, but I still like these miniatures. And again, they hold up very well. And on the whole, pretty easy to stick together. Even if you are a novice, you will pick it up relatively quickly. I think Jacob would struggle, but again, he's only nearly 10 now. It's not what this pack is aimed at on their own. And the Building the Miniatures one-page guide in that starter booklet is pretty good, if I'm honest with you. And you've got the frame layouts there, and an adult will be able to work it out and help a younger child. But this is the thing that's slightly different to maybe some beginning sets that are out there on the market at the moment. It still has that feel of a little bit more old school multi-part miniatures, which is cool, which is fine. Really like the coloured layout. That makes it very easy to find the bits you need to build the miniatures. So let's get them done. Now I needed to build the miniatures for mission 2 as well, and something struck me, which is a little bit odd, is that on one of the miniatures you actually need to do a hand swap, or cut away a hand holding a bag and replace it with one holding a blade, which I'm not sure is needed for the game, but it's a little bit strange. A quick punch out of all the cardboard pieces. Not sure we'll need them in those first 2 missions, but it's nice to have them all ready to go. A quick setup and we're off. Now we had so much fun for the hour or so that we set up and played, and we would have played through all the missions had we had a little bit more time. And I found the stage by stage learning of the rules very, very simple and very, very easy to explain to Jacob, but also good for me. Now I played a little bit of Bolt Action, but not absolutely loads, and I haven't played any of version 3 yet. And it was incredibly well laid out in the book, and I didn't have any problems explaining to Jacob or understanding it myself. And I can just imagine that these simple but quite rewarding rules, like using the dice bag, there's loads of fun involved now, loads of jeopardy as you're waiting to see whether your dice is pulled out, and we had loads of fun with it. Poor Jacob was really unlucky to start with, but he just found it hilarious every time he pulled the dice out of the bag, and it was one for me. And that's kind of reaction you wanted, really. And I could just see how that mechanical alone will really hooked him in and makes him want to play the game more.
I really am a fan of the layout of this book. the missions and way they gradually add more rules and different weapon types and unit types, etc. to the game. And you can just work your way through it and slowly learn the game. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And there's some of that in almost flyer form in the starter sets. And I haven't got the latest starter sets, would be great. I think they're always good for people that are new to games. And even as a experienced wargamer, I prefer to learn games in that way rather than just to sit and digest a massive rule book and then try to remember it all to try and get started. I much prefer to learn a game in that way, just for the first time, then read the large rule books. That is really good, and I'm really, really impressed with it. It's also a beautiful looking book, loads of colour, loads of pictures that are really exciting. If you have anything more than a passing interest in World War II, I think you would be engaged in that book, and I think that's really, really cool. I think it's very well laid out, super easy to read. I love that there's basic modelling guides, basic painting guides in there. It's a real introduction to the hobby, which is great as well. So I think you could pick this box up maybe from somewhere like Bovington Tank Museum and take it home with you, having never wargamed before, but been enthused after your visit to a museum like that, and crack out your box and buy your paints and your glues and things and make a start and get into wargaming that way. And that reminds me so much of those earlier Warhammer Fantasy sets. And I hope, and I think that's what they're trying to do, and I think they do it very, very well. So we played the first 2 missions just to sort of get the basics of the game and see how you thought about it. So what were your thoughts of the game and the mechanics?
It was good mechanics in the game. It was very good.
What do you think about the drawing the dice from the bag to see who goes next?
Yeah,
Was that fun?
Yeah, that was very fun.
I think it's something that's quite unique to some games, and I think it's always good fun. And I thought, before we'd even tried it, that would be something you might like, because it's fun putting your hand in the bag and seeing who's going to go next. So I've always had Bolt Action as a game that, as a mechanic, a basic mechanic that you quite like, and the shooting and to hit and the wound and things. Is that a bit familiar to when you played Warhammer 40k as well?
Yeah, quite familiar.
So it's kind of, I think that's quite cool as a kind of introduction. And what about it being World War II troops? How does that excite you, or prefer Space Marines? You can be honest.
They do the same thing, so I don't really. It's almost the look of the miniature, not what they do. Space Marines are a bit stronger and bigger.
Yeah, but you mean in terms of just having fun playing the game, it feels similar?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, that was loads of fun. Regardless of my thoughts on the game, it's just always nice to spend some time playing toy soldiers with my son. And I'll be really open and honest. He's obviously not even 10 at the time of recording this. He might be by the time you're watching it. And this game, to be fair to Warlord Games, is advertised as 14 up. But you know, I started younger than 14 in wargaming, like many people did. Would he be able to do all of this box by himself? No. Building these miniatures would probably be a little bit too complicated for him. But to be fair to Warlord Games, as I've already said, that's not really what they're aiming at. But with a little bit of help, can a starter set like this be used for a boy of the age of 10 upwards? Then absolutely, if they have the aptitude to play these kind of games, and at those ages, it really depends on the individual child. Yes, it can. And I don't know for sure, because I've not spoken to the marketing team and the guys behind putting this together. But with the existing standard starter sets as they are, I'm not sure who this is aimed at. I can only make assumptions. And my assumptions are people that are new to historical wargaming, absolutely, so existing wargamers, and it does a great job of that. But by its very nature, I think you're sometimes going to get younger people that are interested in it. And the 14 up bit means mainly they're expecting teenagers to be interested in this. But if they can also do a job for people of my son's age, then fantastic. And that's why I got him as part of this video here. I didn't want to just review the box and say, yep, this is great. I wanted to kind of really think of it through the lens of a parent, and could my child use this to start wargaming the historical side? And I think he could. The only bits that he needs the help with more, he could definitely read the rules in this book. This is really good. This is my favourite thing. I think they've done a great job of this. He could read the rules in this, the way they're laid out. There's not that many words. Each paragraph tells you what you need to do, and he will be absolutely fine with it. It probably is just the miniatures. And I get what Warlord Games have done with those miniatures. They're using older frames So there's less expense from a business point of view, there's less risk involved in those. So that does need help of an adult to build, to help pick out the details of what's labelled on those sprues and those frames. So that makes a lot of sense. And if they were push fit, maybe someone of Jacob's age could do it all by himself, but I also get why they wouldn't want to invest in push fit miniatures at this stage. It would just be silly. I haven't really got any major criticisms, to be honest with you. I think the price point's really good, £40 for that. You get a lot of entertainment for your £40 there. And it's a great introduction to the hobby, someone who's never gamed before. And I can imagine going to somewhere like Bovington Tank Museum and spending a day looking at tanks, talking about World War II, and then having a child that's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 maybe, really enthused about it, ask for the set, you go home and you crack out your paints and your glue, or you buy your paints and glue for the first time, because I think it teaches you enough that anyone could pick this up. And I think it works very well for that. That said, there's a couple of slight things. So first one, coloured plastic for the two sides. I get why that's probably not here. I imagine it's a business decision based around the cost of that. These are frames that they already have in stock, things they already sell, and it just wasn't worth that investment. And maybe if they do another version of this in a year or two time, maybe if it's sold well, that's something they'd do. So it's not really a criticism, because it's a decision. If it was put in front of me, that I'd probably say no, we'll just use the existing frames. So the only thing I thought was a little bit weird, I thought the hand swap for Mission 2 was wild. I'm not sure why, if you're getting someone new, potentially never painted or built a miniature before into the hobby, why the second time you're building some miniatures, if you're doing it in stages for the second mission, you're having to do a hand swap. A little bit weird, a little bit strange. I can imagine people are just confused why you'd have to do that. Just leave that off. Just let the model have the bag in its hand, not the knife. Very, very strange. I just think it overcomplicates the building side of things. And if you are a brand new hobbyist and you've got a 40-year-old child, and maybe the mother's bought it for them, and they're sitting there and go, Mum, I've got to cut the hand off. Why have I got to do that? A little bit strange. I get why they're proper miniatures, and these aren't push fit. There's a reason for that, but then don't make it even harder. So that's my only proper criticism of it. It's a little bit strange. Anyone who's built a miniature before, it's not going to be an issue at all. And in some ways, maybe they're trying to teach you how to do minor conversions or weapon swaps and things, but it just feels out of place at this stage, not needed. If you're going to do it, maybe push it back to mission 6 or something before the last thing, and have it as, this is an optional thing you could do, have it as a teaching thing later on, but not at a stage when you're only just introducing the elements of a second unit and the 2 dice in the bag at mission 2. Seems a bit weird to kind of have to do a hand swap before that. But that's pretty much it really. Aside from the not having the contents in English as well, which I mentioned at the beginning of the video, that's a little bit strange as well. I don't know if that was an oversight or not. Obviously, if you're buying online, all that information's there. But again, if you're picking that up in a Bovington Tank Museum and a Waterstones and a WH Smiths, that's a little bit of a weird one, along with the hand swap thing. But they are very, very minor critiques on what is a really good product at a good price. And as an experienced gamer who doesn't play a lot of Bolt Action, if I'd never played Bolt Action before, I would love to learn the game this way. Even though I play lots of war games, I think it is great. You test it out, say, this is cool, I enjoy this. You know what, I'm gonna go and buy the full starter set now, or another starter set, or buy the rule book and buy a box of US Rangers and a box of Panzer Grenadiers, and really build on those armies. And I love the fact that there's a flyer in there, the QR code, that you can download an extra mission. There's a nice journey onwards, which is perfect. But I'd love to know what you think. Any of you going to pick this up for your children, or you're going to use it as a way to get into Bolt Action because you're a Games Workshop game and you've never played anything historical before? Do you see this as a way in? Love to know what you think. Are you going to pick it up? Do you think, I won't pick it up, but I would recommend it to someone else? I'm really, really interested whether people see it the same way as I do, which is a really positive thing for Warlord Games to be doing. And guys at Warlord Games, thanks for sending it, and well done with it. I think you've done a really good job of making an introductory game system there. If you are new to the channel, please consider giving the video a like, dropping a comment, because it really helps the channel grow and be seen by other people. If you're not already a subscriber, hit the subscribe button as well. There will be lots more Bolt Action videos in the future, along with all the other game systems I cover as well. There are affiliate links below, including Warlord Games. So if you want to get your own version of this, if you click through there, it doesn't cost you any more, but it lets them know that you've come via me. And then if you'd like to support the channel even further, you can join the Discord for free and have a nice friendly chat there, get advice around games and things. And you can support by joining my Patreon. There are 4 tiers there, different levels if you just want to support the channel, or maybe you want some painting tuition and things as well. Check all the links below. Join if you want to, don't if you don't, no problems at all. But thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you soon.